English Studies lesson today, we'll be looking at regular, irregular, finite, and non-finite verbs. Don't forget, our last topic was transitive and intransitive verbs. Now we're looking at regular, irregular, finite, and non-finite verbs. But before we go into this, let's look at the correction to our previous homework. You are asked to indicate whether the sentences are transitive or intransitive. Well done, pupils. Auntie scored 5 out of 5. What about you? Okay, 4. You scored 3. No problem. I have to celebrate you with a cheer nonetheless. Now to the learning objective for this lesson. By the end of today's lesson, don't forget I said we're going to look at regular, irregular, finite and non-finite verbs. So, by the end of today's lesson, you should be able to identify regular and irregular verbs. Not only that, you should also be able to identify finite and non-finite verbs. Let's go into the lesson. Let's start with regular verbs. Regular verbs are also called weak verbs. We call them weak verbs because most of them form their past tense and past participle by adding d or ed to the present tense verb. You want me to take that again? I'll gladly do so. Regular verbs are called weak verbs. They are called weak verbs because most of them form their past tense and their past participle by adding what? D and or ed to the present tense verb. While the last letter of some verbs are replaced with T, with letter T, to form past tense and past participle, some of the verbs double their last letters before ed is added. Others also change the last Y, and that Y becomes IED. You know, I always give you examples. Look at these words. Look. The past tense of look is looked. It's added ED. Blame. To form the past tense of blame, we only add D to it, and it becomes blamed. Look at this one, spend. S-P-E-N-D, spend. When it's about taking the past tense, the D changes to T, and it becomes spent. So the past tense of spend is spent. This is say, S-A-Y. In forming the past tense of say, the Y is eliminated and we had ID. It becomes said. Say, said. This is blab, B-L-A-B, blab. It adds ED and it doubles the B and it adds ED. So we have blabbed, B-L-A-B-B-E-D. Classify, classify becomes classified. The Y is eliminated and we had IED. It becomes classified. Now, we're moving to irregular verbs. All we have discussed about is about the regular verb. Now we are moving to the irregular verbs. They are called strong verbs. Irregular verbs are called strong verbs. They are verbs which form their past tense and past participle by changing their sound, especially the vowel sound. They form the past tense and the past participle by changing their sound, especially the vowel sound. Some also change the entire word. The entire word are changed most of the time, while others don't change their form. we have examples for that too. Look at this. Go. The past tense of go is went, and the past participle is gone. So you have go, went, gone. This one, all the entire words change. We have changed the entire words when forming the past tense and the past participle. Look at this. Eat, ate, eaten. This did not change only like the previous one, but some of them, the sound changes. Eat, ate, eaten. Look at the last one, put. There are no changes at all. Put, put, put. So that addresses the example or the definition of irregular verbs. Now we're moving to the finite and the non-finite verbs. When we talk about finite and non-finite verbs, or the finite verb, we say they are verbs which have the past or the present form. Verbs which have the past or the present form are called finite verbs. Let me explain further by saying a non-finite or infinite verb is a verb form that does not show tense. It does not show tense at all. In other words, you cannot tell if a sentence is in the past tense or present tense or future tense by looking at a non-finite verb. It does not show tense. Therefore, a non-finite verb is never the main verb in a sentence. They are helped with auxiliary verbs. Remember, we talked about auxiliary verbs. They are verbs like am, was, has, have, is, and so on. A verb like the word break has 5 forms. To break, breaks, broke, breaking, broken. 5 different forms. Break, broke, breaking, broke, and broken. So we can write, I break a bottle. He breaks a bottle. Or he broke a bottle. Break, breaks, and broke. They can stand alone in a sentence and make sense and be meaningful. We cannot say, I breaking a bottle. We cannot say, I broken a bottle. It doesn't stand alone. It does not make any sense. So, what we're trying to say in essence is that breaking and broken cannot stand alone in a sentence and make sense. They have to be helped by the auxiliary verb. For this reason, they are referred to as the infinite verbs. They are referred to as the infinite verbs because they cannot stand alone without the auxiliary verb. Thus, we now have I am breaking a bottle. I am breaking a bottle. Breaking is being helped with the auxiliary verb am, am. Or I have broken a bottle. We have another auxiliary verb here, helping, broken. So, non-finite or infinite verb must be helped by auxiliary verbs. In effect, the simple present tense and the simple past tense of all verbs are finite. That means they can stand on their own and make sense. Now let's look at examples of finite and non-finite verbs. Look at this. See, saw. What we want to turn them now to the non-finite verbs, it becomes seen and seen. Seen, S-E-E-I-N-G, and seen, S-E-E-N. Let's look at another word, go. Go. The finite form is we have go, we have went. When we want to turn to them to non-finite verb now, it becomes going, gone, because they have to be helped by auxiliary verbs. Another one is break and broke. We already discussed that. And we have the other form, the non-finite form, as breaking and broken. Then the last one, take and took. They are examples of finite verbs, while taking and taken are examples of non-finite verbs. I believe you're following me. Yeah, well done. The non-finite verbs mentioned cannot stand alone. The non-finite verbs mentioned cannot stand alone in a sentence if they are not used with auxiliary verbs. Let's look at these examples. I have seen the man. I have seen the man. I will be going to school. I will be going to school. He has gone to school. He has gone to school. I am taking the boy along. I am taking the boy along. She had taken the boy there. She had taken the boy there. If I ask you not to identify the non-finite verbs in these sentences, I am sure you'll be able to identify them as seen, going, gone, taking, and taken. Well done. You are amazing children. It is activity time. Time to check or time to test if you've been very attentive in the course of the lesson. Are you ready? Then let's do it. Identify the verb and indicate whether the verb is a finite or a non-finite verb. And now you have to indicate if the verb here, if these verbs are regular or irregular verbs. Open, throw, and cut. And your time starts now. Eyes on me. By now, you should have been able to write the answers. I trust you. You are smart children. Now let's do the correction together. Yes. Did you get everything? Did you get them correctly? Then I must celebrate you with a cheer. Well done. Now to what Auntie Fumi loves most. It is homework time. This is your homework. Please copy and do them at your leisure. You know, this is the only thing that guarantees packs of Good Life Magic Juice. That is when you do your homework. Please do, and you will be identified and appreciated accordingly. We have come to the end of the English Studies lesson for today. I hope you had fun learning regular, irregular, finite, and non-finite verbs. I did too. Well done, children. It's time to hand you over now to the mathematician on Kwagbaje for the mathematics lesson. Remember, Auntie Fumi is proud of you.